What I'm about to talk about is not some recycled political talking point. This is not left-wing media spin. This is not a hit job fabricated in some basement. This is Donald Trump in his own voice on tape, saying things that would make your jaw hit the floor. And the person responsible for putting those tapes back in front of the entire world, his old best friend, Howard Stern. Now, here's what makes this video so different from everything else you've heard about Trump guests.
No, a great guest because he would say anything that came into his mind. He was completely unfiltered. He was talking about his daughter was the most attractive woman he ever met and how much he thought she was hot. That's with this crowd. What are you guys on? And give me some of it. But I mean, it was wild every time in the book.
It's not an accusation. It's not a leaked document or an anonymous source. It's recordings. Dozens and dozens of recordings. Trump sitting across from Howard Stern, microphone on, laughing, boasting, performing, completely unaware, apparently that history was being made. Because those tapes don't just make for uncomfortable listening. They paint a full picture of exactly who Donald Trump is, when he thinks the cameras are off and the audience is just having fun. And in July 2025, right in the middle of the Epstein Files controversy, those recordings resurfaced. And this time, the whole world was paying attention. Breaker, the kind of host that made advertisers nervous and listeners obsessed. For decades, his show was popular on the radio for millions of Americans. And Donald Trump loved it. Trump appeared on Stern's show more than 20 times over the course of their friendship. 20 times. That is not a casual acquaintance popping in for a quick chat. That is a man who genuinely enjoyed being there, who trusted the environment, who felt at home. The friendship was so real, so genuine that Stern actually attended Trump's wedding in 2008. They were, by any reasonable definition, friends.
Donald, do you ever discuss sex with your daughter?
No.
You do not?
No.
You've never sat
And I
down?
have a feeling we're not going to hear.
Yeah, no.
And another embarrassing video from a 2006 Howard Stern show has surfaced. It shows Trump alongside daughter Ivanka and son Don Jr. joking about being a sexual predator.
You know about sexual predators and things like that.
Right.
I mean,
You are one.
All right, I was going to say that, but it's true.
But CNN's K-File reviewed the recordings and found that over those 17 years on Stern's show, Trump spoke a staggering 104,357 words on air. Let that sink in. Music, 104,000 words. For context, Trump's own book, The Art of the Deal, the one he puts on his desk and references constantly, runs about 86,000 words. Trump spoke 21% more on Howard Stern's radio show than he wrote in his own flagship book. That tells you everything about how comfortable he was in that setting. That tells you how unguarded he was. That tells you exactly why those recordings are so damaging.
By the way, your daughter,
She's beautiful.
can I say this? A piece of ass.
Yeah.
The last couple of years, I go out with somebody, and she's like 21, and she's talking about, what are you doing? And she's studying algebra. And,
So what?
And it's like, it was always embarrassing for me to walk in. It's too young. 30 is like a perfect age.
Absolutely. She has enough life experience.
Until she's 35.
Too much life experience.
35. What is it at 35, Howard? It's called checkout time.
Now, let's talk about Melania, because one of the most revealing moments in all of these recordings doesn't feature Donald alone. It features his then girlfriend and future wife, Melania Canals. And the way it all unfolded is something you genuinely could not script. On November 9th, 1999, Trump called into Stern's show. He mentioned Melania. He described her casually like she was a piece of real estate as a potential first lady. Stern, being Stern, immediately said, "Let me talk to her." So Trump pulled Melania into the conversation. And what followed was one of the most uncomfortable and telling radio exchanges ever music recorded.
We'll do anything to take care of him.
And things with Melania are good.
Excellent.
The sex is still good.
The sex is extraordinary.
Well, she is terrific in bed. Now, she wouldn't want me to say that, but she is.
Oh, man, she's naked there, isn't she?
She is excellent.
Oh, Jesus.
It's a thing of beauty.
Oh, what a life you
Not so
have.
bad, Robin.
This is a candidate for
Hey, Donald,
That's right.
does she wear outfits to bed? Like special outfits?
No, she wears nothing, which
Nothing.
is much
Always-
better.
You know, she's a great beauty, but she's a great beauty inside, which is almost as important.
Not really.
No problem.
Stern asked Melania what she was wearing. She said, "Not much." He asked if she was naked. She said, "Almost." And Trump was right there. He didn't cut the call short. He didn't say, "All right, Howard, that's enough." He laughed. He played along. When Stern asked Trump about it afterward, Trump cheerfully confirmed she was naked and described it as a thing of beauty. And here's the part that really stays with you. Someone in Stern's studio launched into a crude impression of Melania using a fake accent, making gross comments, and Trump laughed along with the whole thing. His girlfriend, his future wife being mocked on live radio. And he thought it was great content. Now, Stern also directly asked Trump about Melania and birth control. He wanted to know whether Trump trusted Melania to take the pill every day or whether he actually checked, and Trump's response was uncomfortable and revealing. He didn't shut it down. He entertained the question. He mused about it publicly on air, about his girlfriend's contraception, as if she were a management problem. He was auditing rather than a person he loved. That is a controlling dynamic. But as uncomfortable as Melania's segment was, it was the Ivanka recordings that truly broke the internet. In July 2025, in a 2004 appearance on Stern's show, Stern turned the conversation to Ivanka Trump, Donald's daughter. He asked point blank if he could call Ivanka a piece of ass. And Donald Trump, rather than ending the interview, rather than expressing any discomfort whatsoever, said, "Yeah." He then added, "My daughter is beautiful." Ivanka Stern went further, commenting on her physical appearance in graphic terms. And Trump engaged with every single comment. He discussed her body. He called her voluptuous. He talked about her looks with the same casual detachment you'd use to describe a car you were proud of.
She's beautiful.
Can I say this? A piece of ass.
Yeah.
The last couple of years, I go out with somebody, and she's like 21, and she's talking about, what are you doing? And she's studying algebra.
So what?
And it's like, it was always embarrassing for me to walk in. It's too young. 30's like a perfect age.
Absolutely. She has enough life experience.
Until she's 35.
Well, see, that's too much life experience.
35. What is it at 35, Howard? It's called checkout time.
And you're probably, I would say, the greatest judge of beauty on this planet. In fact, I would create a TV show for you where all you did was just judge women.
Now, that may be the best idea of all.
It's a simple thing. It's a half hour, and we strip it out all over the country.
I would say I'm the all-time judge.
You own this pageant, you go over, you look, you're meeting the girls. It's like wonderful.
When these clips resurfaced in 2025, they landed completely differently than they had in 2016, the first time they went viral, because now the context was loaded. The Epstein Files controversy was front and center. Conversations about powerful men and their relationships with young women were dominating every news cycle. And here was Trump in his own voice calmly agreeing to the sexualization of his own daughter on national radio. Stern later reflected on these moments in an appearance on Here's, where it gets even more serious. Because in one of the resurfaced clips, Stern's co-host, Robin Quivers, was present when the conversation turned almost casually to the topic of sexual predators. And Trump's response in that exchange drew renewed and intense scrutiny when the clip went viral in July 2025. Snopes, the fact-checking organization, investigated these recordings in July 2025, right at the height of the controversy. Their senior reporter went through the tapes methodically, and their conclusion was unambiguous. The recordings were 100% authentic. No AI manipulation, no doctoring, no editing tricks. Every word you hear is exactly what was said in context in real time. Let that be the answer to anyone who wants to dismiss this as a deep fake or political hit. Snopes said, "No, these are real and they're not going away." So, how did two men who were this close, two men who attended each other's weddings, who spent 17 years building a radio friendship so comfortable that Trump said more to Stern than he ever wrote in his own book, how did they end up as enemies? One word, Hillary. In 2016, when Donald Trump ran for president against Hillary Clinton, Howard Stern broke with him. He endorsed Clinton, and that was it. Music, that was the moment the friendship died. Trump, who famously cannot tolerate disloyalty, never forgave him.
The turning point in my relationship with Donald was he did ask me to speak at the convention, and I had to say no. And
Were you tempted at all?
Well, since I was a Hillary supporter, for a minute I thought, well, I'll go up and endorse Hillary, which would have been a great moment.
You wish you would have done that now?
No, I wouldn't do that to Donald. You know, it's a weird relationship I have with Donald. Was at my wedding. I remember having very warm feelings for Donald, and I do. I mean, he was always very nice to me. I've had dinner at Mar-a-Lago many times. And that's why I couldn't even believe that Donald really even wanted this all to work out for him. Because if you go to Mar-a-Lago, it's like a piece of heaven. It's a beautiful place. And I would go there to eat dinner with my wife. And by the way, I was never comped. I paid.
But Stern didn't just walk away quietly. He kept talking. In 2020, he backed Joe Biden. In 2024, he backed KLA Harris. And along the way, he made his feelings about Trump voters extremely clear. He said they were stupid. He said he had no respect for them. He was not diplomatic about it. He was not trying to maintain relationships. He was a man who felt genuinely betrayed or perhaps genuinely horrified by what he was realizing about the person he had once called a friend. Because here's the thing about Howard Stern that most people miss. Stern has spent the last decade reinventing himself. The shock jock who asked Melania if she was naked in 1999 is not the same man sitting behind a microphone today. Stern has been in therapy for years. He has spoken openly about how much he has grown, how differently he sees the world, how uncomfortable he now is with some of the content he created in his shock jock years. He has apologized for things he has reflected. He has changed. And watching his old friend become the most powerful man on earth while those old recordings circulated and went viral, that clearly weighs on him. Now, here's the detail that makes all of this more than just a historical curiosity. In December 2025, Howard Stern signed a brand new 3-year contract extension with Sirius XM. 3 years keeping him on air, keeping him in a position to speak, keeping him relevant and powerful through what is shaping up to be one of the most turbulent stretches of American political history.
Happy to announce that I figured out a way to have it all. So yes, we are coming back for 3 years. The announcement... So the announcement is that we're going to be partnering with SiriusXM and continue to entertain for the next 3 years.
That is not the behavior of a man who is done talking. That is not the behavior of someone who wants to fade quietly into retirement. Stern knows the recordings exist. He knows what Trump said on his show. He was there for all of it, and he is apparently not finished having his say. The timing of those contract negotiations happening right in the middle of the Epstein Files controversy, right as the resurfaced clips were dominating news cycles, is not a coincidence. Stern staying on air means Stern can keep speaking. And every time he speaks, those recordings get another moment in the spotlight. So, let's bring it all together. Because the Howard Stern recordings are not just embarrassing clips. They are a window into something much more important. Who Donald Trump actually is when he is not performing for a political base. In those recordings, you don't hear a statesman. You don't hear a father who respects his daughter. You don't hear a husband who protects his wife's dignity. You hear a man who treats the women in his life as extensions of his personal brand. You hear a man who laughs when his girlfriend is mocked on live radio. You hear a man who casually agrees to the sexualization of his own child because the host asked nicely and the studio audience was laughing.
I didn't know this was him. I don't believe his stance on abortion, for example. The Donald I know, I think he probably needed to get a few people abortions. I don't know what he's doing. The stance on abortion, the women don't have the right to choose what they, you don't have to get an abortion. But if you want the right, I remember the days of women in the back alleys with coat hangers. That's not acceptable. And you know who used to be able to get abortions? Rich people. They could get them. And so, let's face it, it is really unthinkable to me.
Trump has tried since 2016 to distance himself from those recordings. His team has claimed he was egged on. Melania herself tried to provide cover, saying she had warned him about Stern's style. But Snopes confirmed in July 2025 that the recordings are real. Every word is his. No manipulation, no tricks. Howard Stern spent 17 years giving Donald Trump a platform to be exactly who he is. And now, with a new contract signed and the Epstein files swirling in the background, those recordings are back, not as gossip, not as tabloid entertainment, but as evidence. Evidence of a man whose public image is performance, whose marriage is a brand, and whose private words tell a story that no speechwriter can fix. The tapes are out there. Snopes verified them. Howard Stern isn't going anywhere. And Donald Trump, who once said 104 out of 357 words on that show, more than he ever wrote in his own book, cannot take a single one of them